Awesome. All right. Well, today we got Wayne Beals here. We're going to talk through a bit of the market updates on what we're seeing in this market here in April 2025. Wayne, I just did a deal with Wayne and his team on a new build in Woodlawn that was really impressive, super sustainable, all green tech, and just really, really great. So thanks for joining me today, Wayne. Why don't you I know we want to talk a little bit about new construction, what you guys have going on at Green Line, and why don't you kind of like give us a little background?
Yeah, well, so thank you for doing this and for bringing your buyer to our project. I think that it was a great fit for your buyer, so kudos to you on finding them a really cool place. You may be cognizant of this, but that is one of the three most energy efficient homes built in Chicago. Then the other two are right next door to it. So those are just amazing places to live. And beyond energy efficiency, they're ultra comfortable, well insulated, got great indoor air quality because of the way they're built. They're extremely quiet inside, which comes in handy for our Zoom calls because we can't hear our neighbors. So they're pretty amazing places. So what we got going on, we're working on a bunch of two flats in that same neighborhood that your clients bought into. What I love about Woodlawn is the upside potential. We're in a community that has a lot going on. It's got a lot of development happening, including the Obama Center, dozens and dozens of new construction projects. It's got the Green Line feeding into it. It's got the Lakefront. It's got Hyde Park and the U of C. So it's got a lot of economic engines, and it's still very affordable. So that's one of the reasons we're down there. And then having vacant land, which Woodlawn has, we're able to build new construction that is this zero energy stuff that we're building that you saw.
Yeah, I mean the zero energy stuff is incredible, right? It was really interesting to see just what goes into like a zero energy home, from the insulation to the windows, uh, the choices for flooring, heating and cooling systems, like booster system. I just was like, wow. And then
Yeah.
obviously the solar panels that help you get, it's not zero energy, but that enables you to end up at like a zero energy footprint. So I'm into smart tech, or like the smart home stuff, which I think is just kind of like the tip of the iceberg, right? But seeing what you guys were doing as far as recirculating air and the filter systems and the heat pump systems, like it was kind of incredible to see how far you can really go when you start from a ground up construction. Sorry, I just had a phone call come in. When you start
Oh,
from a
that's right.
ground up construction, like how far you can really go, and like what you can do.
Yeah, I think it's the way I would describe it is that generally in new construction, we're building brand new 1987 Ford Tauruses in Chicago. You walk into these houses, they were built yesterday, but they're not materially much different than the houses we built in the 80s. And nowadays, when we approach construction at Green Line, we're looking at it from the perspective of, well, how do we build a house that is adaptable to today's climate? How does it deal with wildfire smoke, for example? How does it deal with longer allergy seasons and pollen? How does it deal with heat waves? How does it deal with polar vortexes? And so it just so happens you build a house that's airtight, and you build a house that's really well insulated and that has really good windows and really good doors. It deals with keeping the elements out better. And then you start thinking about fresh air exchange. You talked a little bit about the air recirculation. So we have very intentional ventilation in these buildings. What I would describe most people's ventilation experience at home is it's accidental or incidental. I close the door, there's a little leak at the bottom of the door. So when I turn on the cooking hood, my fresh air comes in through that leak, to
Right.
replace the air I'm pulling out. And we engineer our houses so that they have intentional fresh air. We're bringing air in from the outside, we're filtering that air, we bring it through a heat exchanger, we take our stale air, we put it through that same heat exchanger, we take the energy out of that air, we bring and we precondition that incoming air to the indoor temperature to bring that fresh, clean air into your house. And you have fresh air when it's 0 degrees outside, when you would never open a window. And so those are just some of the ways we can make a house better. The other question I get all the time is complexity. Our houses are actually simpler. Case in point, we don't need carbon monoxide detectors because we're not worried about it, right? We're building an all electric building, and who needs a CO detector if there's no possibility of it?
Right. All this sounds great, but it sounds expensive. So help
Hmm.
me understand how you guys kind of balance cost along with building these homes. Like, where are you flexing in order to hit these price points?
Yeah, so we're obviously in an emerging market in Woodlawn. We're redeveloping that community and we're reinvesting in that community. And one of the biggest challenges you have there is cost. You have to be very disciplined about what you're doing. You have to be very careful about your budgets. Otherwise, you're gonna lose money as a developer in those markets, or you're gonna fail. So that forced discipline has been really good for our DNA. In the last 10 years, we've built about 60 of these, right? And so we've learned what's cost effective and what's not. So let's talk a little bit about stuff that doesn't make any sense. Just throwing money at expensive mechanical systems doesn't make any sense, right? Throwing money at lots of closed cell foam insulation doesn't make any sense. Thinking about the insulation value you need for your wall, how you're going to get there and how you're going to get there cost effectively is a design consideration. And design is free, right? Like if I sat here and I just thought about the different ways I can make a building better, and I listed all the different ways I can insulate a building, and then I sorted those from highest cost to lowest cost, I could actually insulate the building for a whole lot less if I just think about it a little bit more.
Right.
And so I always tell people cost is a discipline issue. It's not a function of the quality of the product. The product can be super high quality and still be delivered at a cost that's very competitive with the market. It just really is how much design effort, how much learning are you willing to do as a builder? And so one of the things I do for other realtors and other builders is consult on these things and help them take some of those lessons in their projects.
Nice. Nice. Very cool. You guys said you did 60 deals or you built 60 homes in Woodlawn in the last 10 years. What's your forecast for Woodlawn for the next 10 years? Where do you see it in 2035?
Wow. So one of the challenges Woodlawn has had is disinvestment. So, if we turn the clock back to the 50s, 60s, and 70s, we have a community that was really plagued by tear downs, failed urban renewal policies that where the city's answer to crime or poverty was to tear a building down and displace people. And we kind of look at the world we're in now and we see basically a landscape of vacant lots, and we tore all the housing down. So obviously there's nowhere to move into. So the neighborhoods feel very vacant. And so as a developer, you see that as an opportunity. You go, hey, look, there's vacant land, I can put a building there. But then you have to figure out how to untangle that from, how do you go into a neighborhood where there's not a lot of transactions, there's not a lot of comps, and then start building buildings that are obviously going to cost a lot more than the existing buildings that are there. And then how do you do that and not, convince an appraiser to finance it, convince a bank to finance it. So convince another realtor to show it, if they don't typically show in that neighborhood because there's nothing there to see, right? So you have to draw investment, you have to draw consumers, you have to draw realtors from the outside into the community. Woodlawn is the most undervalued dirt in the city of Chicago, from my perspective. I mean, where else can you go that's transit connected, has a grocery store, has access to entertainment and shopping, has a lakefront, and you can buy a new construction house at the lowest price point in Chicago. So,
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't do a lot in Woodlawn, but I was shocked at the quality of the product and getting kind of exposed to the neighborhood. And I mean, I've done some stuff at Woodlawn adjacent. I just have not done deals in Woodlawn proper. So it was really eye opening to see what kind of product you can deliver. And it was really interesting to drive down some of those blocks and see like half the blocks new construction. That was eye
yeah,
opening for me, for someone who, like I said, doesn't spend a ton of time in Woodlawn. So it was
yeah,
great.
yeah. No, it's really exciting to be part of it. And I mean, when I ran across, like, I think you and I talked a little bit about my history of Greenline. I've worked with them for a long time. And I'm just lucky to be on their ride. I mean, like I saw Benjamin starting to innovate housing around 2015 by going all electric and getting rid of gas lines. Once I stood in the first house and I understood what he was doing from a builder's perspective, I sat back and I said, you know what, this is literally going to change the way everybody lives once this becomes mass market. And so we're kind of in the way I would describe it to you is we're in Tesla 2012. People are just starting to see our products out on the street when they drive around Woodlawn, and they're pointing them out, and they look different, and they're different to them. But once they start understanding the benefits of that product, they're going to want it, and it's going to become very, very mass market. So I predict 10 years from now, we're going to continue our redevelopment streak in Woodlawn because that's a neighborhood we're committed to. And it's going to be the greenest community in Chicago as a result. It's all vacant lots, right? And if we're building new buildings that are all zero energy, we've already built an entire city block in Woodlawn that doesn't have a gas line.
Wow.
And that's not something any other neighborhood in Chicago can claim in recent years anyway. So when we just look at the future, we see Woodlawn as this neighborhood that we're going to expand that commitment to. And then when I look at also the future, I'm looking to expand into other parts of Chicago because I feel like what Greenline is doing is very disruptive to the building industry. If you think about it, if you build a new construction home, it just has to be better than the alternative, right? Well, what's the alternative? An old home. So you don't have to build a very nice home to be better than an old home, right? Than especially a 100-year-old home. So builders don't have a lot of incentive to build these state-of-the-art, wonderful places to live. But once we come into the community and we actually bring that product there, that disrupts their process. They now have to say, wait, hold on. If we're building in the same market area as these guys, we need to compete with them. Otherwise, we're not going to sell. Because once consumers start understanding that they can have this, they won't want what we're building. And so that's that disruptive force that I feel is really important to move sustainability forward. And so I'm in this for a few reasons. Obviously, I'm like you, we make our living helping people buy and sell real estate and getting them into the right home. But I want to be able to drive through Chicago when I'm retired in my electric vehicle, probably, and see thousands of buildings that are there that are sustainable that wouldn't have been there if I didn't really push forward and if Greenline didn't really push forward.
Awesome. You mentioned a little bit more about general Chicago. What do you think? What's your forecast for this year? What do you think this year is going to look like as far for the real estate landscape here in Chicago?
I mean, I think there's going to be continued pressure. I mean, you know, I think there's a lot of media that'll tell you that, people are leaving Chicago, but I think it's kind of the opposite. I'm seeing Chicago get a little younger, right? Like people are moving in from the coast, and they're upper income folks, right? They have a little bit more money because they're moving here because we're affordable. We're not as expensive as San Francisco or New York or Boston or Miami or maybe even Atlanta in some cases, right? So the reality is that if you move to Chicago, is with telecommuting especially being a big part of people's work lives now, we have two airports and we have fresh water and we have moderate housing prices. That's all a win for consumers. And so I feel like consumers are going to continue to choose to move here. What we need to do as Chicago is we need to cut the red tape and build more housing because if we don't do that, housing affordability is going to become problematic. I mean, if we think housing is unaffordable now, I mean, I go visit my family in San Diego, right? And I mean, it's $3 million for a
Yeah, it's
garage,
a whole
I
nother
mean,
level.
so right. So when we start thinking about like housing affordability in Chicago, we really have to get busy building more housing. So I'm a big proponent of the ADU ordinance that's out there. Uh, State Senate bill, House bill HB 1813 supports building accessory dwelling units throughout the entire state of Illinois, including in Chicago. So, send a letter to your state rep letting them know that you want to see that. That's the fastest path to more housing units that I can think of. We can turn basements into apartments. We can turn attics into apartments through that bill. I would prefer to turn them into all electric, sustainable
Yeah,
apartments, right? But I'm not going to layer my agenda on housing. Housing is already unaffordable. Let's get that going, and I'm going to keep my agenda of electrification running parallel to it and hoping people respond to that market incentive.
absolutely. And I mean, look, I agree with you. I think this is the best city in the country, right? Like Chicago is affordable. We have access to essentially an ocean, right? It's a lake, but it's freshwater, the freshwater ocean. We have beaches. We got downtown. We have entertainment. I mean, I just don't know what there is that you wouldn't want to come to Chicago for. And I do think there's a lot of opportunity. Housing's affordable here. I got friends that are in DC. I got friends across the country, and it's crazy. It's absolutely insane. I don't know of another world class city that you can come to and live comfortably and really have a world class experience, and that's what you get here in Chicago.
Yeah, I think the key is really for us is to find a way to sort of protect our heritage and our history as a city, and then welcome the newcomers in a way that allows them to want to keep coming here and investing here. And so we have to find where those two come together. And to me, I think they come together if we can build more housing units, right? We can slow down our displacement, maybe eliminate our displacement, and we can give newcomers places to be. And I think by doing that, we all share the tax burden that we have. So that's one of our challenges, is we have, and this is everywhere in the country, we have high property taxes. And so we want to make sure that if there's more population in our communities, that tax levy is distributed better and it's just better for our real estate economy. So I really can't emphasize how important it is going to be for Chicago for the next 10 years to just build as many units as we can, because otherwise we do lose a little bit of what makes us Chicago in the replacement with more affluent people moving in from the coast. And I believe we can all do this together and everybody can benefit. But we really got to put public policy in that place. So I'm really pressing for changes to cut the tape at the city of Chicago to make building easier. I'm pushing for zoning density changes, things that just make us better. I'm a YIMBY in a lot of ways, and so for me, it's more about preserving our sense of place and moving forward at the same time, as opposed to just moving forward and kind of paving over it, which I think is the wrong thing to do. So,
Absolutely. Well, hey, it was a pleasure working with you on this deal. I love the product you guys are putting together on Green Line, and I thought this was a great opportunity to share that with a few more people. So I hope to do more deals with you, and I think this is a great way to wrap up this call. But thanks again for your time today, and I hope we can work together in the future.
I can't wait to work with you again, Tom, and I am overjoyed that there's a realtor out there like you helping people find homes. So, when as the people find you, that they're making a great choice. So you're a great guy. So it was good to
Awesome.
work with you.
Thanks again, Wayne. All right. Well, thanks again, and we'll be in touch soon.
All right, Tom. Take
All
care.
right. Have a good.
Enjoy it.